Hmm. Good morning. I'm Akosua Washington Woods with Unity San Diego. I want to thank you once again for coming to sit with me this morning for prayer and meditation. We'll just take a few minutes, and we know that you and all of us are here because we need to take this opportunity to just be present with each other. And so, this is what we're going to do. As we settle in and we take a deep breath, oh, just letting go of what brought us here and what we have to do later on, knowing that we are here for these few minutes to just be present in this moment and in this space. Today's daily word is grace. What does that mean to us, to our community, and our world as a whole? Grace matters. We matter. So, with that in mind, we walk with integrity, with honor, with dignity, and most of all, with love. Grace and ease is always better than strife and dis-ease, isn't it? In order to let go of all things that get in the way of our dignity, we must walk forward in our grace. We look around and we see things that bother us, but we can also look around for those that show up in kindness, in heart space, and yes, in divinity. It might be a story that we saw on Facebook, like I did yesterday. It was a story of a fellow who was unhoused, but he also had some injuries, and he had to go into rehab. And so when he went into rehab, he had to surrender his dog to a shelter. Hmm. But a nurse who was working with him knew that. And what did she do? She went to the shelter. She adopted the dog, and then she brought the dog to rehab. There is a wonderful picture showing this fellow in a wheelchair with his face buried in the neck of his dog. So you know that human and that dog who belong to each other were there to share that moment. Yes, that moment in grace. Kind of brought tears. It did, yes. But you know, Grace can also be the little girl from next door who brought cookies over that she baked herself because she said that's what neighbors do. She and her mom often do that, as we often share with them. But sometimes Grace is just being able to sit and watch the sun rise or the sun set. Um, because, you know, as we do that, we know that we're all part of this great big universe. And as part of that universe, we know that we are part of grace, because that's what universe is, and that we matter. Grace is knowing that we are all part of a vast and powerful universe. We're all a part of that peace. Therefore, we're all a part of living in grace with each other. You know, sometimes though, it's hard to live in grace. And then we know, and we take the opportunity to make amends when we have to acknowledge our humanness and then acknowledge that we'll do better next time. The daily word today said that God's grace is always with me. Let's go into the silence and remember that God's grace is always with me. God's grace is always within me. God's grace is always with me. In the silence, we are circling ourselves in grace. In the silence. We talk about being blessed and being a blessing. As we walk along in our journey called life, are we always aware that we are blessed or that somehow we are someone else's blessing? Do we always know where we make a difference? I would say that most of the time we don't. But that doesn't really matter. If we are walking in our divinity, we know that great and good things will happen, either for us directly or for someone else. We are kind and gentle human beings, being spiritual and grace filled, and that is what matters most. I know there are times when this seems almost impossible, but spirit within is in the possibility business. There are song lyrics that state, slow down, you're moving too fast. You gotta make these moments last. Da 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 da. You know the song, Feeling Groovy. So we know that being full of grace is kind of like feeling groovy, isn't it? We know that deep within ourselves, we circle ourselves in grace filled love, in grace filled joy, in those grace filled moments when we know that we are divine, that we are full of our divinity, that we are what makes grace possible. When we think about those moments when we are circling ourselves in our truth, in our trueness, in our oneness, and our wholeness, we are grace filled. So let's move forward in that grace, in that possibility, knowing once again, I'll repeat, that God's grace is always within me. God's grace is always within me. God's grace is always within me. In the silence, go deeper. Today's affirmation is, we walk with grace. We talk with grace. We are grace today. So go peacefully, my friends, and be grace today. That is today's gift. Grace. We are grace. We walk with grace. We talk with grace. We are grace today. Thank you for being with me this morning one more time for today's prayer and meditation. I'm Akosua Washington Woods, and I say, go forth today, be blessed, be a blessing, walk with grace. Amen. Namaste. Aho. Ahim.